Good morning. Welcome to Collision Coffee Talk. It is Thanksgiving week. I'm not gonna lie, I'm dragging. An alarm went off this morning, and all I can think about is a holiday week, and all of my people are off, and I've got some quiet, hopefully work. But then I thought I just really wanted to sleep, so here I am. And I think probably a lot of you are feeling the same way on this Monday morning and thinking about everything that's probably coming up for the week, whether it's traveling to family or maybe you're the one even having to host the family for the meal this week. And we have the family and the meal and football practice and all kinds of things going on. So let's make this quick because this week isn't going to get any easier, folks. So we might as well just get into it. All right. Not a lot to talk about. I'm going to try to keep this one as short and sweet. There are some big topics that I do want to cover next week. So come back next week and I'll talk about the Gerber State Farm issue and a few other big things, but I just don't have it in me this week to go through those this morning. So we're going to talk about the reason why Progressive does not pay material invoices. This was funny. I sort of laughed. Um, just a hint. If you're a claims manager, don't try to think you're going to hurt yourself. So we'll get into that one. We're going to talk about the reason we do this job. I was reminded about that last week. I get reminded of it a lot. Two things. I did have another death claim investigation last week, which also made it really funny as I was working with the local sheriff's department. Another funny thing that sort of happened with an inspection, and I will share that later on, probably in the next coffee talk as well, or maybe something as a funny. But there's sort of the reason we do this job and kind of a reminder, specifically as we go into Thanksgiving week. The GM dealers are revolting, and I am here for every minute of it. I'm very excited about it. Hyundai crashes out. I'm not even sure what Hyundai was thinking. I'm not even sure where this came from, but we are going to talk about it. Increased workplace violence. I did promise yesterday, if you were watching on the social medias, that I was going to tell the story. I was going to tell the story of the woman in the picture, and I am going to go ahead and cover that. And then we're going to talk about GEICO, death, and taxes. So, um, some interesting things. All right, let's kind of kick off the Thanksgiving week. Like I said, I've had last week was a little bit way too busy. The whole State Farm Gerber deductible waiving, trying to steer all work into one single brand around the country. So the phones were crazy. I had a death investigation, accident recreation. And then while I was there, they asked me to go look at something else that were, they wanted to show me that they had been learning all of these, investigations we're doing together, which I thought was great. Um, I tend to get in a lot of trouble, so anytime law enforcement wants to be friends and do things, I have a feeling I'm going to cash in favors one day. So I might as well make as many deposits in that bank account as I absolutely can make. Um, but um, but then I got a text message from a technician that I know. Her and her husband are both in the tech side, so not in the estimating and the whole insurance side. They got in an accident. They're about 4 blocks from their home. A gentleman, you can see the vehicle flipped over there on its side. A gentleman in his 70s through a stop sign, and she T-boned him, which is what then made the vehicle kind of I guess flip over or whatever. Um, so she texted originally about, hey, take a look at my vehicle. Do you think it's going to total? And I was like, yeah, like obviously I had to total, but as we were going back and forth through the exchange of what was going to happen. She was telling me kind of her story. So she's in this accident. It's her only transportation. It's now totaled. Somebody ran a stop sign. It's none of her fault. And the only thing really that was on her mind through this whole thing was taking care of the other gentleman. So the person that was at fault for the accident and them being safe. He was obviously in his 70s. He was a veteran. And goes through this accident where the vehicle flips up, rolls over. She T-bones them, obviously. And he was okay. They were able to get him out. He walks to the ambulance. We all know how. Let's go ahead and get you checked out. You feel okay, but things can happen. But marveling sort of at the technology. Her and her husband both do a lot of, classic restoration. We all know that those old cars, heavy, um, good old American steel in them, but they didn't necessarily wreck very well. But just at all the technology, this was a newer vehicle, and how well it did and how well it performed, and it kept him safe. And that, here's someone that, he's going to get to go home. He was only, it turns out he's sort of a neighbor. He was only several blocks from his house as well where this accident occurred. And so, what we do, because I was also reminded later in the week by a very crazy person who appears to be from Tennessee. Brittany, this one's for you. That, that what we do isn't about cost, right? I think sometimes we lose sight of that as body shops. If maybe you've worked with insurance companies in a DRP program for too long, or you listen to too much crap that other people say, what we do isn't about saving money. It's not about we deserve a profit for what we do, but it's all about really ensuring that when we put that car back together and it goes back in somebody's hands, that it works the same. And so as we were having a conversation about, kind of the whole thing, is she now really understood a little bit more about why things were so like that. It's that personal connection. We know cars are supposed to wreck. We know that's what we do until somebody goes through some sort of an accident, and you see how the technology, how the body transfers the energy around the occupants, why there's things called D rings, why all that stuff exists. You see it in action. It gives you a little bit better appreciation. I think I'm a little bit more, I don't know what would be the word to put it. I'm harder on people. I get angrier quicker than a lot of people, because what I do all day long is when the worst of the worst of the worst has happened. That's like I'm in the middle of that all day long. I have some friends that run ERs. They're either head ER nurses or ER physicians, and they kind of the same thing. We see the worst of everything every day. We see everybody's worst day basically when the ER, and I do death claims and multiple injury claims and kind of all that stuff. And so all these systems are important, and is the structure right? I can't, these systems can't work if the body's not square and we don't have a center point, right? All those things that we used to talk about, center and datum and plane, that's the basis of the math running all these ADAS systems. So everything we do is super hyper important. Um, the glue tool that you think you're just gonna like, pull out everything these days and not replace panels because you're gonna save money and whatever, that it all makes a difference. So um, there was a great reminder. It's always great when you hear people like reason through it and talk through it, and suddenly there's sort of that light bug moment. But what we do is we put vehicles back on the road in hopes that we never see them again, but that if something happens, they're going to be as safe as the day they bought that car. We're not re-engineering it. We're not doing anything that's going to put any of that in jeopardy. And that cost what it cost. There's no shortcuts. There's no deals. There's no cutting a deal with a Gerber or cutting a deal with a whatever else to try to save money. There's no saving cars from totals. It is what it is. When a car totals, it totals. But what we do is about human life. It's not about paint. It's not about metal. It's not about repair versus replace. We build soul vessels that carry people down the road. So as you go into this Thanksgiving week, and thinking about that, there are some families out there driving around in cars that we'll just say we as an industry, we fixed. Do we feel really good about looking them in the eye as they put their families in those cars and take off to go visit their families for Thanksgiving, and are driving on the roads around the country? Did we do everything we can? Or did we do just enough? Or did we do only what we thought an insurance company was going to pay? I still have to look people in the eye, and I have to hold hands, and I have to go to funerals, and I have to do all those things. So um, there's a reason we do what we do. Just make sure your reason is the right reason, and it's not about making a check, or getting a new contract or getting good KPIs. We're dealing with lives, people. All right. So along those lines, um, the GM dealers around the country started revolting last week. If you go back, and I'll probably in the down in the description of the video or the podcast show, wherever you're at, I'll probably put a link to the previous show. where we talked about how, General Motors cut a deal with Caliber. It just is what it is, right? And basically, every Caliber location gets to be listed on the GM website for some dumb reason. Um, I just keep thinking if General Motors inside counsel would go sit down with the people that are in the collision division, which is probably like three or four people who have never fixed a car a day in their life, and asked them how you were going to testify in front of a jury after somebody has died in a car wreck that you just allowed a bunch of shops without having to be certified to be put on your website as suggested for collision repair because that particular provider promised you that they were going to self-police. Like I don't even I mean I just can't imagine that General Motors attorneys are aware really of this deal and its consequences and what it means. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, no. I'll take care of it. I'll watch it. I'll make sure we're doing a good job. But in the process of all this happening, a bunch of GM dealerships and independents who are GM certified shops were missing from the website for how General Motors was telling customers. And that website listing, is what's driving what they're going to call. There was another article that came out how GM's pushing forward with apps in vehicles and FNOL and some other things. Well, that listing is what's driving that. It's got to pull that data from somewhere. So there was some looked like it had been fixed, but the dealers are keeping an eye on it, and it's back to the dealerships and probably the independents as well being missing from the list, and the Caliber stores being there again. And so the GM dealers are asking if you are a General Motors dealership, you work at a General Motors dealership in the United States of America, visit with whoever is in your chain to decide if you would like to join this petition of GM dealerships that are complaining to General Motors corporate, so outside of the collision division. When we talk about the silos of dealerships, it's kind of crazy, and that's corporate America, right? But if you are a GM dealership and you would like to complain, there is the information on the screen. It is Andrew Karolek from Criswell Automotive Group seems to be spearheading this. This post was public on the social media forums, and lists all the information for how you can get in touch with them to join this petition that's going to go to General Motors. I would say if you're an independent repairer that's not a dealership, but you are a General Motors certified collision repair facility, and you too suddenly find yourself missing from the list while there are MSOs, Caliber stores, Joe Hudson's, other MSOs that are listed that are not certified. I think that's the craziest things is these shops didn't have to get certified. They didn't have to go through any of the thing that the GM shops do, and they didn't have to prove they had the equipment. They didn't have to do anything, and they're on this list, which is just nuts. Which is, I can't imagine any attorney from General Motors. Like, I don't have a lot of experience with General Motors. It was way back in the 90s. There was a case on Cadillacs that were leaking, and a particular policyholder got mold exposure from, they were continuing under warranty to try to like figure out the water, but nobody wanted to replace the carpet and do all that other stuff. And he ended up with flesh-eating bacteria and lost a lot of his face. And I remember that lawsuit and listening to General Motors. And so I found them to be very, very good attorneys. I can imagine if you're an attorney for an OE, you're probably pretty good at what you do. I can't imagine that anyone in General Motors with a legal background went, yeah, yeah, that sounds good. We'll let this MSO that we don't know anything about promise us that they're going to do the right thing. They don't have to meet any of the criteria, but we'll recommend our customers to them, even though we have a program that has some criteria to it. That just, I don't know what is wrong with the OEs these days and what they're doing with the OE certification just isn't worth it. I just, at this point, it's kind of comical. Like almost every week, there's a new OE, what were you thinking moment. Speaking of what were you thinking, I just thought this one would be fun. I get emails all throughout the week from insurance, shops send them to me from insurance companies. Sometimes it's insurance companies trying to respond to me. I just want to probably, when I kind of probably like my second like claims manager, like you pop up and you're not like just over a team anymore. You're like over a state or you're over an office. I had a rule that I didn't want my adjusters to freehand emails because I was like, I'm gonna have to read that email out loud to a jury at some point, or it's gonna become a poster in front of a jury. And so, probably not. Like, if you hadn't had like a business communications class, if you didn't have a way of not like just responding with your emotions, and I've done that sometimes. I've still responded with my emotions and read that email back later and went, "Yep, shit was in that one." But so I was like, nobody gets to send an email. Like if it's not a template letter email that's already done, you don't get to freehand and write them. Um, so I'm just gonna say, as insurance companies, probably you should do the same. You should probably um, tell the people, adjusters and managers, just not to send out any email that's not pre just like a template. Now, that's like my advice to you because it's Thanksgiving and I feel like being a nice person today. Um, but if you don't want to do that, it's okay because it entertains me greatly. Like I can't even tell you. Like I told you last week, I'm a claims nerd. I love all of that stuff. I love listening to lectures. I will go to all of these attorney conventions or it's plaintiff attorneys like talking about how to sue insurance. Like I'm in for it all. Like I love it. So this is Jake Kinshriff, um, and he's a managed repair representative. Jake, that I personally would have a really good time for this. So I thought it would be fun because it's Thanksgiving that we would talk about how when you what you think about paint material invoices and people are getting pushback and they don't want to pay them and you guys know in January we're getting huge price increases again. We got, PPG was saying 6%. They're not the only ones that are going to have a rate increase in the first quarter. So paint material keep going up and damn it, you got insurance companies coming in and trying to decrease what they're paying you in the P&M rate already, which isn't even close to being accurate. So you're going to have to do material. There's just no way around it. You're going to have to do material invoicing. I don't care what deal or discount or somebody tries to give you. You can't discount your way to profitability. You can only charge your way to profitability. So, shop negotiating paint material. This is what our our managed repair representative writes back. Body materials is part of the operational cost. Huh. Although I do agree that you have found a system to come up with an estimated amount of body materials used for the repair process, with this already having been a consideration. So I go to the longest sentences on the world. Okay. Um, so body materials are part of operational cost. No, they are not. So if that was the case, we wouldn't have a we okay, I'm gonna figure out how I want to break this down. All right. So we have historically in this industry, we've had a body rate for body labor. Then let's say that's $45 an hour. We've had a refinish labor rate, and that mysteriously is always the same as the body, right? And then we've had a P&M rate, which is sometimes significantly less. Traditionally, it was usually around half of whatever the labor rate was for labor. We had a paint materials rate, and that rate was multiplied times the refinish hours on an estimate. So historically, if we go back, we have two labor rates that are the same, and then we have a paint material that accounts for the liquids, paints, and materials that would, in theory, or should, not theory, are associated with the refinishing process, which is why it calculates off refinish labor hours. If it was meant to be body, then it would also calculate off the body time. So because it only calculates off the refinish time, there we are. If body materials was supposed to be factored in to your operational expenses, then the body labor time would be more than the refinish time. So, for example, maybe body is $50 an hour, refinish is $45 an hour, and material is 24 something dollars an hour. Like, just use those numbers for fun's sake, right? That would be if a shop was allowed to think about it as part of its operational expenses, it would be able to adjust its labor And if it was supposed to be part of whatever something already existed, then those two numbers would be different. But because those two numbers are the same, that theory doesn't hold up much either. Okay. But I do appreciate that our managed repair representative from Progressive here does like Eagle MMS. Wink, wink. Way to go, Yanni. Even the insurers like your program now. So, all right. We do not support any additions. Well, of course you don't. Who wants to pay more money when you're an insurance company? But it's not like I need your political endorsement. I don't need your support. I need your check. Those are the things that I want. It's kind of like an electric bill or even like a food container from a grocery store, Jake. Oh, wow. No. It's not even like that at all. Which I thought was really interesting because he doubles down and he adds a little sentence here and he goes, it may be something that can be calculated of what it cost for each individual transaction, but it is considered to already be factored in and an operational cost. So let's break that down. For years we've always heard it's the cost of doing business. Now I have a show I have a class that we did and we really kind of really get into the nuts and the bolts of cost of doing business and what that means and kind of all those things. And why that really doesn't apply to the collision repair business. That would apply if I was allowed to set my rates based on what my operations were. So we don't all have the exact same stores that are in the exact same zip codes that are subject to the exact same utility rates, gas, water, electric, all of those, subject to the same tax rates, subject, so what I'm paying for property taxes or labor taxes or any of those things. I mean, good God, you people in California, I don't know how you do it. Like, I'm going to give you some props for that because I look at all your laws and go, I don't know how you run a business in this state and one be in compliance, but then after that, how do you make any money out of that? So we don't all have a cookie cutter. So we can't all have the same rates. Well, so if we're going to come in and I'm allowed to choose my rates, well, then that would be great. But we operate in a system where technically the body shops don't choose their rate. You have an insurer picking a rate, which is always where the body and the refinish are the same dollar amount. So that would you're Jake, you're off because you clearly don't know. But I thought this was interesting because I can go back to a case and one day I really want to like have Larry pull these depositions because I can tell you that while he was doing this, I really wanted to smack him. And I'm pretty sure that's probably not allowed in court. Um, Larry has a very famous deposition in the insurance industry. Everybody knows about it. It was probably from 20 something years ago or so, where it's a rates thing because, his shop sues for rates all the time and they're very, very successful. There's an article in Repair Driven News on Nissan Altima that he got $125 an hour to repair. So you can break that down. But one of the things he does is he'll drive around town. So he'll pick a market radius. Once an insurer kind of decides, well, what's the market? Like, what does that mean? Is that the state? Is that a neighborhood? Is that like a mile radius? Is it a block? What is it? And then Larry will drive around in that territory and go buy cups of coffee. And as technology has progressed, you don't get photographs of the coffee receipt anymore. You get videos of Larry buying coffee. So it's kind of good. Well, I decided that I would pick something different. Like, let's not do coffee, let's do something different. So let's talk about market and what it is. So if we're going to say that something is the cost of doing business and we're going to relate it to a grocery store, I just decided I'd pick a grocery store, right? And we would think about that. Well, what he's kind of saying is like, hey, the container, the grocery bag, either the plastic or the paper or whatever, sure, you got to have them. Sure, you can tell me how much that grocery bag is, but you give them away when people buy groceries and you sort of bake it in your cost. Okay, Jake, I'm going to say you're right on that. And you are right because the store sets their pricing on the products based on what their operation expenses are. Some grocery stores are nicer than others. Some have different operational, whether it's employees, profit sharing. Like we have one grocery store in town that's employee owned. We have the Walmart superstore. We have all those others. So they all have different costs of doing business. So when you go in those stores, everything costs different. I can't go into and I did a very short just city. So same zip code radius in my little city here. I didn't want to go too far. I wasn't too invested. So just to be honest with you, it was amazing. I went to all of these different grocery stores because Jake told me it's like a grocery store container. And I could not buy Hellman's mayonnaise because that's real mayonnaise. I'm not doing the Miracle Whip stuff. I want the real mayonnaise. So I could not buy my Hellman's squeezable mayonnaise. I also don't have time to like get a knife, and so I'm just gonna like squeeze. I love the squeezable. Um, I couldn't buy it for the same price. No matter where I went, every store had a different price on the exact same product, Jake. Why is that? Well, different stores have different overheads. So, for example, Target's a pretty nice place and they've got really good parking and they have really great like lighting and they have lots of offerings and lots of things in there. For Target, it was $5.69. I went to Kroger, which is just my local like grocery store, which is their kind of regional grocery store. My uncle retired from Kroger, so we got a good relationship with them. It was $6.49. Wow, that's a big price difference between Target. At the good old Walmart's, right? Your good old Walmart Supercenter, it was $6.02. And then I decided while I was standing in Walmart, I was like, well, what can I get this on Amazon for? So I looked it up, and on Amazon, it's $5.97. However, they will deliver it tomorrow to my front door, which is really nice, right? It's a next day service. But then a little bit later in the week, I had to get a little bit further out of town, about 8 miles away from here, my office where it sits. And there's a little gas station and it's by the lake. And so people go to the lake on the weekends, obviously much more popular in the summertime, right? And you're camping and you're doing whatever. That same thing of mayonnaise at the lake was $9.49. Why is that? Well, in addition to whatever the operation expenses are, the gas station knows that if you're buying your mayonnaise at the gas station by the lake, it's probably because you forgot to pack it on a camping trip, and you'll pay whatever to just get it so you can get back to the campsite or get back on the lake or do whatever. So, turns out, like in real estate, location is very important. It seems in selling mayonnaise that location is also very important. So there we were, Jake, right? Like that container, the grocery store, that plastic bag that they were going to put my mayonnaise in so I could carry it out the store, all had basically a different price because they're setting their pricing. And if you, as an insurance industry, would let shops set their pricing, then they wouldn't have to do material invoices because we could figure it out. But then we'd all be different, wouldn't we, Jake? Because we have different real estate, we have different tax structures, we have different salary and payroll structures, we have different everything. So my cost of doing business is nothing like what somebody else's cost of doing business. So therefore, we couldn't charge the same thing. But that's what you want us to do, Jake. You want to give us one rate for body, one rate for material or for refinish labor, and then you want to give a labor rate for material that's only based on the refinish hours. So if it's only calculating off refinish hours, and there's no way it's calculating my body. Now, I wondered, like, what's the history of market volatility in mayonnaise? Turns out AI will give that to you. I was blown away. So I asked the AI about the market history over the last several months of mayonnaise prices in my areas. And dude, it told me that it was the average of my market should be 554 to 749, and that it gave me even a really cool graphic. So I thought that was cool. I was like, I have a mayonnaise graphic. Like, I can't believe it. I was telling Larry, I was like, we got to stop doing the coffee videos. Apparently, we're going to be able to do a Google like AI search through Gemini and it'll give us a graphic. It's going to make court testimony way more fun in the future. Um, so I like to use that when any insurer is trying to tell me that things are baked in the cost. And I am a big fan of that. It's like going to a Logan's Roadhouse versus a Ruth Chris, right? I'm going to get a ribeye at both places, but the pricing structure is going to be completely different based on the experience, the waiters, the whole thing. So that steak, one piece of beef is different than another piece of beef. So that's one of the things that he made a mistake about in his email. That would be a window of opportunity. So I always tell shops, be water, So we don't just fight back. We go, well, hey, I like your reasoning there. And this is what I'm thinking. So if I'm thinking about my grocery container, all of these prices are different. The plastic bag's the same. You're right, Jake. It's just got a different logo on the plastic bag, but all of these places would give me a bag to carry my mayonnaise away, but all my mayonnaise pricing would be different. So what do you think about that? Are you saying that I should set different pricing? That I instead of giving you a material invoice, Jake, I should just change my body rate to $5 more an hour so that it calculates for all of the different expenses that I have here. Then the next thing that I always like to do is I always get this one that it's like your gas and your water bill or your whatever. Those are just your costs of doing business. Okay. Well, Jake, you alluded to it, so we're going to talk about it a little bit. He mentioned the electric bill. Now, I could probably agree that there are certain business expenses. So my workers' comp insurance, my garage keeper's insurance, my electric bill, my water bill, all of those things are a cost of doing business. That's why I have to figure out what I'm going to charge for things. Sometimes that's hard when we kind of try to explain that. Look, I've got this beautiful, I think of some of these big body shops now with their big, beautiful glass buildings, right? Like it's a lot different than what some of our places here in Arkansas look like. Let's talk about those electric bills. So one of the other things that I like to do when I'm negotiating or having conversations with people like Jake is I like to talk about it like a dump truck, right? So if we look at the things that I use that go with the car, so they're going to leave with the car, then that's not a cost of doing business. That's a cost of the repair. I could argue that my electric and my water, well, I'm going to have that bill even if no cars come into the shop. If I don't have a single car to fix this week, I'm going to probably have payroll. I'm going to have insurance. I'm going to have a light bill. I'm going to have a gas bill. I'm going to have all those things. But if a car comes in, well, now I'm going to spend money on product and material that's going to go on the car. So that can't be a cost of doing business because there's no way for you to factor it because the car's not there. I can factor expenses that don't have to do with a vehicle. Those would be my fixed operational expenses. Those are a cost of doing business. But if it goes with the car, so if you envision a dump truck in your mind and you start thinking about things that you're going to throw in it, there's a couple of shops I know over the last like 20, 30 years that put trash bags in the back of a car. And every time they use something, they throw it in a trash bag. That way they can have this wonderful accounting for what they use to the repair of the vehicle. And I can remember 30 something years ago having debates with shops, and I would walk into a shop and I'd be like, all right, we're going to sort this out. We're going to figure out the supplement. We're going to settle it today. And those little suckers would walk over with their trash bags and just dump them on my feet with like wadded up masking tape and used pieces of sandpaper. And I'm just looking at the shop owner going, okay, like I was gonna write a check, but now we got to get in a fist fight. Like, I mean, like, you can't do that. That's just clearly funny in a way, and that's a very interesting way of accounting for things that you use on a car. I think the industry then took that and said, "Oh, we're going to check it out. We're going to scan out a piece of sandpaper." The hell a technician is ever going to scan out a piece of sandpaper? But you think about the things that only have to do with the car. Like I wouldn't use this if the car wasn't here, and what things are going to leave with the car. So as I'm negotiating that down, sometimes they'll tell me, we're not going to pay for sandpaper because what if you reuse that on a different car? And I go, well, I'm not really a big fan of using sandpaper. And then some jack off on Instagram the other day made a video about 3M's flexible abrasives and how he's able to use them on 6 or 7 cars. And I'm like, well, thanks, asshole, because I had an insurer send it to me and go, here, Kristen, here's how people reusing abrasives. And I'm like, if these guys don't stop making these videos and putting them on TikTok, I'm going to start sending them all the bills from the body shop and seeing if they can reimburse them with whatever money they think they're making on social media and whatever. Um, but but okay, if we don't want to say, as I'm negotiating down, I may say, look, all right, sandpaper, okay, we'll take that off, but you're still going to owe me for the primers. You're still going to owe me for the seam sealers. You're still going to owe me for everything that went on the car. So that's, if we wanted to take Jake's argument there for an electric bill, those are some ways to talk through that. Then the great thing is Progressive has a RTA in the policy. So Jake, here's what's probably going to happen. The customer's going to invoke RTA. No, we're not just going to discuss the differences in the material bills. The whole claim will be reevaluated to ensure that the customer is being properly compensated for their repairs. Imagine what's going to happen to that estimate, Jake. Probably a pretty nice RTA. So Larry or Mark Olson or somebody, but there's ways to talk through that. So be water. Happy Thanksgiving. Don't push back. Try to pull them in. Use their reasoning. Use whatever idiotic thought they have. Grocery container. Jake was feeling pretty proud of himself probably when he typed up that email about how he was explaining why he wasn't going to paint the paint material invoice. And then I've had those moments early in my career where I thought I wrote the coolest response or I made the coolest response when I was at a shop, and that stuff blows back up in your face, and you really learn to just keep your mouth shut. Less is more in a lot of things. But here we go. All right. Hyundai. Um, I could probably say this one makes me mad. So if you are a Hyundai certified collision center, turn up the volume, lean in and listen because Hyundai sent out this email. It appears as though they made this decision in July. I didn't hear anything about it in July. I didn't start hearing about it until last week. Multiple shops. I probably got 50 something messages with this email in it. So here's another OE that is sold out to an MSO, and it bothers me. I understand that probably the MSO and the OE think they're doing a favor for policy for their customers to be able to get vehicles refinished, but it's not a favor because there's a lot in here to unpack. Okay, so basically, Hyundai Motor America, which will be called HMA for a further of the email, has launched a partnership with Crash Champions to support warranty paint repairs. Um, if you are in a lot of the OEs, if you are a certified collision network shop, you're supposed to get preference or priority to be able to have the opportunity to do warranty work. That's probably one of maybe the only benefits of being an OE certified repair facility is it's supposed to let you get this. Well, that really sucks when you are a shop that went through all of the rigmarole and sometimes just the silliness of becoming a certified collision repair center for some of these brands, and you've paid your money, which may be 2,500, 3,000, like whatever it is, you've paid your money in hopes that it's going to help bring you work. And then an OE goes and cuts a deal to put all of one MSO's shops on something, and they didn't do any of that work. They didn't make any of those sacrifices. They didn't make any of those promises. They didn't do anything. And if you read this and quote, so if you're not listening to the or watching the video version, Hyundai dealer, we wanted to provide Hyundai dealerships with the option to use their preferred sublet body shop for warranty and goodwill paint repairs when a Crash Champions location is unavailable. So if I'm reading that, Hyundai, have you just said that the dealers are supposed to use the Crash Champions first and can only use their preferred sublet, which is either their own dealership body shop or a body shop in the marketplace that they formed a partnership with? They only get to use them when there's not a Crash Champions in the market. You're going to have to clarify that one for me. I think you got it backwards. What it should say is this: Hyundai dealerships, you should use certified collision network shops only. And if there is not one of those in your market, then congratulations, we've made this thing available for you so that you can use Crash Champions. I think you worded that backwards. I can't imagine that you're going to tell people that Crash Champions gets preference over your certified collision repair network shops. But then this last paragraph down here on the first page, there's a lot on a second and third page. You can go probably look this up. I'm sure it got posted all over social media. If it didn't and you want to read it, I'll send it to you. Just drop Melanie an email. By the way, she's off this week, so don't think you're going to get an immediate response because her email rolls to me, and I can promise you I'm probably not checking email. Okay. It says if the shop is found to be uncompetitive in their market area, who's deciding who's competitive? Hyundai doesn't know anything about refinishing labor, and the price for that. So who's on that? Like who's making a decision? please tell me it's not Crash Champions or somebody else that's on a DRP program that's working within the CCC database that is now rolling back refinishing times, included operations, that's not doing proper refinishing all the way to the edge. They're doing back taping and foam masking, and they're doing clear blending and all of these things that you're not supposed to do, specifically if you're going to warranty the paint, right? Like, please tell me that's not who's helping you decide what's competitive. HMA reserves the right to request a qualification packet be submitted for competitive analysis. Okay, this is me asking if any of you are ever asked to submit a packet for competitive analysis. I want in. I want to see the process. I want to see what questions, what you're asked to present, and then I want to see the decision that comes back. So just, I'm raising my hand, right? Like I know Larry wants into. I can imagine Yanni would love to see that as well as part of Eagle MMS. So like, I'm a claims geek. I would love to be a part of it. So if anybody gets asked for a competitive analysis packet, let me know. Hyundai, this is for you. It's your fair warning. I'm volunteering to help the shop for free. Just saying, bring your A game. That's all I'm going to tell you right now. It says failure to comply will result in the shop's immediate removal from the program. Come on, people. Always, you got to stop writing this stuff, right? You're gonna immediately remove somebody from your program because they don't comply with a refinish competitive packet. But shops are forced to buy back cars from poor collision repairs, and you let them stay on programs. So always you're not policing your certified program to see if these shops are having to buy back cars from like real problem, and refinish is a problem. We're gonna talk about that, like welding and part usage and all of those things. But if you don't do a competitive refinish, we're gonna immediately remove you from the program. Do you do you get how bad the deposition on just this thing alone is going to be? Some things that were very interesting. If you're going to do this, you have to have a 10-year warranty on the refinish. That's an interesting number. Not a lifetime, not a warranty, and in keeping with other a 10-year warranty. So um, good, good luck warranting a clear blend for 10 years. That'll be very interesting. And then it says they're going to continue to monitor for competitive paint and refinish. Who's monitoring? It's not going to be, I mean, I think Hyundai has a couple of people, like maybe two people in their collision department, very nice people, nothing wrong with them. They obviously are not capable of monitoring that. They got jobs to do, and it's not monitoring refinish competitive pricing. So who's doing that? Like who jumped and volunteered and said, we'll manage competitive pricing? And then please tell me it's not coming from like CCC data. Like those estimates are so terrible depending on who wrote them. I mean, that's one of the things that we find painters lately just listing the hours and hours that are being left off of estimates that they need. So I just, I don't, I mean, I've made it very clear. I don't think OE certified repairs last. I think there's just too much happening right now. But if you're going to ask shops to pay to be on your program, all of you OEs, this isn't just a Hyundai thing, then you're going to ask them to do training to spend more money, whether that's estimating, iCar, whatever you're asking them to do. So that's more money, but then you're just going to let anybody do something. Like a lot of shops right now would probably really appreciate warranty paint work. I remember early 90s, I did a ton of warranty paint work for General Motors and Ford, for D-Lam. I was refinishing all overs, and it was great money, and it was really good work for our shop. So I imagine there's a lot of shops that would really like that work. How demoralizing is it when you've checked all the boxes, you've done all the right things, and then you let somebody just cut in line and take all of that from the shops that have really worked their tail off? Like there will always be some market anomalies. There may be a place where a dealer doesn't have a relationship or whatever. Handle those on a one-off. Don't try to do this blanket thing and think, well, we found an MSO and they've got 1,000 locations and look how much it will be for our customer. Is it, I mean, if we also factor the things, refinish isn't harmless anymore. Refinish will actually kill somebody. It used to be the one thing I used to say can't kill anybody in the shop other than the painter, basically. If you don't do radar compliant formulas, if you don't control the mill thickness in certain areas, like we just do a checkoff list, it does actually cause problems. So Refinish doesn't need to be something you're trying to necessarily run to the bottom of to get a price break on. It probably ought to be something that you make sure is done properly. All right. Well, Al Capone couldn't get away with not paying his taxes, and apparently Geico can't either. Um, we've talked over the last couple of weeks. I think one of the things that will make states a little bit more sympathetic to some of the things that shops are facing with insurance companies recently is when you start to think about how much these pricing changes and payment changes that insurance companies are proposing is affecting taxes and tax revenue within states. Like it's almost like they're avoiding taxes in a certain way. Well, Geico filed a motion to dismiss a $69 million lawsuit in which the state is claiming that Geico has not paid any of its taxes. So I just think it's fantastic, right, that South Carolina is looking for its tax money. $69 million is nothing to sniff about, but apparently no one, even an insurance company, cannot pay their taxes. So Al Capone didn't get away with it, and apparently Geico's not going to get away with it either. That one's pretty interesting. Obviously, it's a completely different issue than reducing labor rates or doing whatever. But just to know, you will get a state's attention when you start talking about tax revenue. Some states are doing very, very well. Texas just passed they finalized several amendments where they're protecting what's my mind is going blank when you capital gains taxes. They're making it a very, very friendly place for businesses to do, for businesses to come, but with new population increases, Florida also reported that hey, we got all these people from up north moving down here, that we're doing so well. We've got, surplus. I even here in Arkansas, our governor was talking about a surplus that we had, and possibly doing away with income taxes. But there's you don't mess with the government's money. That's all I can tell you. Like, don't mess with the IRS. I messed with the IRS about 15 years ago, and they kicked my tail, and I learned a lot of lessons about taxes, and liens from them. So don't mess with them. All right, I do want to talk about this issue. So I told everybody that I would, and what was sort of ironic is that over the last 72 hours, so much more has happened. So this story is out. This young woman was a recent graduate from a tech school and was working as a welder, and she was killed in her workplace by a coworker, bludgeoned to death with a hammer, and his response was that he just didn't like her. Couple of reasons why I wanted to cover this. Our workplace is changing. Just population and demographics. If you look at birth rates or whatever, the collision industry doesn't move forward unless more women and then other ethnicity, like our workplace is going to change. It's going to look completely different. Specifically, more women are entering the workforce. More women are applying at tech schools, skilled trades, etc. And this industry hasn't made a lot of movement. I can remember very vividly 20 years ago sitting in an industry event, and one of the industry's icons that everyone respects was on stage in front of 300 and something people saying that he wouldn't hire a female technician because that would just bring too much drama to his shop floor. And nobody in the industry said anything to him. Nobody stood up. We had the Women's Industry Network. We had all these people in the room, and I'm thinking, anybody going to go get him, or do y'all just want me to do it, or is that going to be my role for forever? As I get to be the one to pitch the tantrums? But I get reports all the time of workplace violence, workplace harassment, specifically against women. I know that that's an amplified in tray, so to speak, because when you're looking in the industry and you're trying to think of who can I talk to, and you Google, probably my face and my videos are going to pop up more than anybody. And so I've accepted that that's something, and I will take those reports, and sometimes I'll pick up the phone and call the shop and go, hey, you got some work to do. With this incident with this welder, it started sort of a groundswell. There are women now all over social media posting in skilled trades. We're not talking just collision repair, but everything, posting their stories. So this is a problem that we have. But at the same time, this weekend there was an incident where you had a Division I football player had gotten into, it was a defensive lineman that had gotten into a scuffle with some offensive linemen at practice. And the next morning at breakfast, he showed up and stabbed two of his teammates. Like, we just have this thing in the country right now where people just aren't, they don't handle discourse and disagreement and any of that very well. And they're overreacting with a lot of things. Now, what does that mean? I got a call from our HR person that we regularly work with, and she specializes in body shops. And she was just closing up a case that was workplace violence. It was the second occurrence for the shop, but it was the same employee. And that resonated with me. She was talking about how big the settlement was, that the body shop was having to pay the injured employee. You're responsible for when an employee in your shop goes crazy. I mean, you are. And that sort of resonated because when I was reading this woman's story, um, the family and everybody at work knew this guy was not right, that there was something wrong. It was not a well-beloved, wonderful coworker that everybody got along with. No one was surprised when it happened. So as employers, whether you're just a manager, you may be a floor manager, maybe you're a production manager, you may be a shop manager, you may be the shop owner. It's your job to be aware of what's going on in your four walls and with your people. And you can only do that by walking the floor and visiting with people and having conversations and creating an environment where somebody can stop by your desk and go, "Hey, there's something off with Tim today." I've been in body shops where, and I'm from Arkansas, and I carry a handgun everywhere I go, basically. But I've been in shops where I literally have techs that have more drawers in their toolbox that have weapons in them than have tools in them. So if you're going to have that, and you're going to allow people to even have that in the parking lot, and you don't have a handbook that says no weapons on the premises, which means you're not keeping a gun in your truck, you're not keeping a gun in your toolbox or whatever, and then you have an incident, you're going to be legally liable. And the one that Wendy was talking about from the body shop, it was a tech. He had physically accosted a coworker at one location, but the shop manager was like, "God, he's a really good tech. He's my best tech. I can't get rid of him. So I'm going to move him to another one." They had multiple locations, moved that guy to another location, assaulted another coworker there. Well, now it escalated because now the first time you could say, "We didn't know and we handled it." But you didn't really handle it, you just moved him. And so the second guy that got insulted had a really, really huge liability lawsuit against the body shop owner because you knew that employee was a problem, but you didn't take measures to prevent that. You didn't mandate any sort of like anger management counseling. You didn't do anything to try to make that work. And she was talking about how much she had to convince the shop, "You're wrong. You don't want to go to trial. You want to settle this." And so we had this technician's incident. There is a lot around sexual harassment, physical harassment, and that's not just um, male to female harassment. I had a case 4 months ago that was a male employee at a body shop that filed a sexual harassment complaint against another male in the body shop because of the things he was saying on the lunch break. And everybody's like, "That's just terrible. It's so, grow up. You gotta have tougher skin if you're going to be in this industry." But legally, it's sexual harassment, and you owe the man. Like, so it just kind of brings to light. Society is changing. The average worker is changing. I think in this industry, we just sort of assume that everybody's supposed to be tough and you're supposed to just like let stuff happen and not complain or whatever. That's no longer what the workplace is like. You do need human resources. You need skills in it. If you own a body shop and you have one employee, you are subject to all kinds of things. And if you don't understand employment law, if you don't understand human resources, liability, workers' comp, if you don't understand any of that, you need to get some help. And that doesn't mean that you hire a full-time human relations person. But I do, it was a good time for me to be reminded of Wendy, and why we work with her. Wendy, we go back to State Farm. So Wendy's out in California. She worked human resources for State Farm. I can tell you there's probably no human resources issue that didn't happen at State Farm on a daily basis. So that's a really good place to cut your teeth. But for the last like 20 years, Wendy has owned her own firm. And her firm does lots of different HR, but they have a large group of body shops that they work with. And so single owner body shops, MLOs, and they help sort of translate human resources, employment law, workers' comp, and all that stuff to our collision repair world. And that can be a handbook. Like, do you have a handbook about weapons and where they are allowed and are not allowed to be on the property? Do you have like a report, like job reporting and requirements or any of those things? Wendy is a great resource. Now, we've got this class on our website. Um, and I'm telling you, don't take it. Like, instead of, I mean, it is Wendy. She's teaching it. I think it's like 12 videos. It's like 8 hours of like human resources basics where, she's talking about why you'd want to have an employee handbook and why you need to have those things. But don't buy the class. Just reach out to Wendy, and maybe just have a one-on-one. Pay her to help you come up with some plans. Pay her to analyze your business. Pay her to just talk to you. I mean, I don't know, Wendy will talk to you for free. You don't have to pay her to talk to you, but have a conversation about human resources, because Wendy's had multiple shops just this year alone paying settlements in excess of 250, $300,000 for HR incidents that have happened at the shop. I get calls on them, whether it's mostly, female techs or estimators or even adjusters calling me and saying, I think I'm going to file a sexual harassment suit. I mean, this happened here. This is whatever. It's happening more and more. Um, it's just, but it's society, right? I mean, how can you be a D1 athlete playing football, college football, D1 football, and you stab two of your teammates because you didn't like what happened at the practice the previous day? I mean, or this technician, she's in her, or this welder, she's in her workstation working, welding, and the guy comes up behind her and beats her to death with a hammer. So people are crazy, and it has nothing to do with you as an owner or a manager. They've got a lot going on in their life, right? And so at any moment, an incident may happen. It may be one of your employees gets in a fight or an altercation with a customer, and what. At any moment, any of this stuff can happen, and so you need to have a plan. I think we're probably more prone to it because we are dealing with people in their worst situation, right? They've had a bad day, they've had a wreck. They're probably frustrated with the insurance company because they're 4 states over and don't give a crap, and they can drive to your place and look you in the eye. So, I would really I would love to sell you a class, right? That's what my company exists for, and that's how I support everybody that works here. If you love Melanie, buy a class, right? I think this one's bigger than anything right now. Please, like, if you're a one shop, one location, and you've got at least one other employee that's drawing a payroll from you, you need to make sure you understand HR and HR law and workers' comp laws and some other things. Wendy can help you with that. If you have a store that has more than one employee, well, then you really have exposure. If you're hiring and firing, you need Wendy. Like I had a case first. It was winter because I was wearing winter clothes when I went to the hearing. But a body shop fired an estimator because she came in and said she was pregnant, and they ended up paying multiple six figures. I mean, the settlement was huge. So I was like, what were you thinking? Well, we didn't think she should be. His heart was sort of in the right place. We didn't think she should be around here. Like, this isn't a healthy place to be. I'm like, if it's not a healthy place for her, it's not a healthy place for you either. Like, I mean, like, we need to think about this. But so plea, that's my plea. For what all's happening. It's a crazy time. Crazy things. People are stressed, the economy. It's just, we were, I was, when I was doing always update the research for the negotiations class, and we kind of talk about anger and some other things. And mental health diagnoses are up 65%. So that's just, protect your business, protect yourself, right? You guys have worked hard for what you have. Um, and it's frustrating when you sit down with some of these shops or some of these suits. They're like, this isn't fair. Like, it's not fair that I'm having to pay. And you're right, some of it's not fair, but it is the law. So make sure that you're where you need to be. Okay, let's just say happy Thanksgiving. Have the best week. Hopefully you get to spend time with your family and your friends. You'll get a day off of work. If you're like me, it's probably the only day I'm going to get off this week. I will be in the office, but I plan to probably not answer my phone. So if it's an emergency, those of you that have my number can text me. Everybody else is off. So Holly, Avery, Melanie are off. Larry's working. Him and I are both. We're actually going to release some depositions. We're thinking about doing a public class and reading depositions out loud. So we'll be talking on the phone. But just enjoy the time. If you get the one day, in my family and our body shop growing up, we got the Thanksgiving day. That was it. We worked on Wednesday and we worked on Friday. So some of you are going to work Thursday night or you're going to work Thursday morning. You're going to go in and do at least a booth cycle or you're going to do something. So enjoy your family and be thankful for what we got. We've got good people with good hearts trying to do good things. We just got to get it all together. So hopefully you have a wonderful week. I will be back with you next Monday morning, and we're going to talk about the State Farm Gerber stuff and the deductible waiving and all those things. I'm going to go a little deeper into that next week and some other things that have come up, particularly State Farm seemingly not wanting to share their financials with DOIs. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that too. Next week, we'll be busy with more back onto the regular schedule. Have a fantastic day. And yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Bye.